Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Trevor Lawrence all had huge weeks. Which young quarterback would you buy stock in? Plus, 0-2 teams. Will any of them make the playoffs? And if so, which one? And we dive into the Week 3 power rankings here on a Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, everyone, and welcome in to a Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL. I'm James Rapien, and no Tony Wiggins this week. Actually, you're going to hear him on Friday. Instead, we've upgraded. No, don't tell Tony, but Christopher Carter is here from Locked On Steelers and Friday's edition of Locked On NFL. What's going on, Chris? How you doing, man?
I'm all right, James. It's just I'm still recovering from what was an insane week in week 2. We saw a lot of crazy performances, a lot of crazy comebacks. But I think we're in a good place to talk about some of these young guns out here in the NFL, because it's always exciting to see who are the new names being formed and respected at the quarterback position. And we had some guys step up this weekend.
Yeah, we did. And Tony Wiggins would probably be wanting to talk about how his Saints are going to be okay after Jameis Winston and all of those things. We're not going to do that today. Instead, we're going to talk about 3 guys that balled out and led their teams to wins in different fashions. Jalen Hurts, 26 of 31, 333 yards, a touchdown, 2 rushing touchdowns, 57 more yards. Fantasy owners loved what they saw from Jalen Hurts, and Chris and I both are smiling right now because we may or may not have Mr. Hurts on our fantasy team. Tua Tagovailoa, even crazier. 36 of 50, 469 yards, 6 touchdowns. I mean, it's making you go, ooh, ah. I mean, that's Peyton Manning, right? Peyton Manning I remember he threw for 7 touchdowns in one of his first game with the Broncos, and it was like jaw dropping. Mm-hmm. Well, Tua was not far off. And last but certainly not least, Trevor Lawrence, 25 of 30, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns. All 3 of these guys leading their teams to victory in different ways. Yeah. Each one was weird. Of the 3, I think Hurts probably had the best week because it was dominant from start to finish. Mm-hmm. Tua obviously posted the biggest numbers. But of these 3 guys, Chris, which one would you buy stock in today to be the best of the trio long term?
I'll say this. I know there's a lot of listen. I don't want to get the Tua folks coming after me because that is a real thing. There's the Tua fans. You don't mess with them. But I will say this. I'm not doubting Tua. I'm just saying I want to see it against a secondary that's not as depleted as the Ravens were on Sunday. And yes, it's not taking away any of his 6 touchdowns. He did a great job taking what was there. He did a great job leading a comeback and standing there in the moment to get the Dolphins the win to get to 2-0. But that Ravens secondary was not at full strength. They were having a lot of people missing, and I think that they will be better when they're healthier. And I'd like to see him do that against a healthy defense that has a good complement of guys in the secondary. So I'm a little cautious there. Jalen Hurts, I give a lot of respect to. I'm not sure who the Minnesota Vikings are just yet. I thought maybe they were for real after the way they manhandled the Packers in week 1, but the way that the Eagles just embarrassed them on Monday Night Football makes me take a step back. So, but still, Jalen Hurts gets a ton of credit. And this is not to say that the Colts are some bad dudes, but, man, Trevor Lawrence, it's tough to ignore how good he is, how consistent he can be. I mean, even when the Jaguars are bad, you can just see that he's not the one that's holding them down. He's not the one that's making the big mistakes that are costing them. And he was efficient, 25 of 30, 235 to the air, and 2 touchdowns. And again, it was a game where he didn't have to do too much because his defense shut out the Colts. But of these 3, I like Trevor Lawrence's trajectory, but I wouldn't be surprised if any one of them turned out to be the star of the group.
Yeah, all 3 put up star performances, but I agree with you. Because I think of the 3, Tua, there's really all of the questions are about him, not what's around him.
Right.
Not even, Mike McDaniel, he first-year head coach, but of course there are questions there. But I think people believe he's going to put Tua in a position to succeed. With Jalen Hurts, there's still questions about him. And can he be this passing quarterback, be a franchise quarterback, be a top 10 quarterback, be what the Eagles need? And he certainly looked like it on Monday. I mean, he was a lot of fun to watch, and they've done a good job of giving him weapons, man, because that was quite a performance. But I agree with you, because Trevor Lawrence, to me, could go to any one of these organizations and you'd be like, oh, that's the dude. Mm-hmm. And it's not like we're going out on a limb. He was the first overall pick for a reason, but he didn't put up, even this past week, didn't put up the numbers of the other two. But eye test, you watch him, and he's just, you can just see different. And when you see different, you know it. And I think Trevor Lawrence is different. I think he's one of those dudes. So to me, I would go with him. But I would say this too. That was a big test for the Miami Dolphins, and a test
it was
for Tua Tagovailoa. And it wasn't just, oh, you got to face the Ravens. It was, now you have to come back against the Ravens down 3 scores. That's tough to do. And he did it. And he completed it. It's not like he rallied and then he threw the game-ending pick 6 or the interception when they pulled within 7 or something. He finished it.
Yeah.
So he was probably third on this list, and probably is still third on a lot of people's list. But of the 3 that surprised me the most, I'm not shocked that Jalen Hurts put up big numbers. Yeah. I'm not shocked that Trevor Lawrence is starting to look efficient, like the number 1 overall pick and efficient. Right. Yeah. I'm a bit surprised by Tua. And now I'm raising my eyebrow a little bit like, oh, could it be?
Are the Dolphins for real?
yeah. And is he for real?
Right.
Because I remember in 2020, and I'm sure you remember this, or 2019, the Bengals were awful. The Dolphins were awful.
Yep.
And there were a few other teams. It was the tank for Tua.
The tank for Tua. I will never forget that, man. Woo, that was some days.
It wasn't tanking for Burrow. It wasn't, oh, man, we got to make sure we get Herbert.
Oh, man.
No, people were down on Herbert at Oregon.
They were.
People weren't sold on Joe Burrow. It was tank for Tua. And what a difference, a month later made. Burrow beat Tua in Tuscaloosa, and things changed, and everything went bonkers. But the Tua that we saw on Sunday looked really damn good.
He did, and again, he played great. There's no doubt about that. He came on strong. It's 6 touchdown passes, and I mean, I guess also if you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you can do stuff like that. But I mean, there were also plenty of blown coverages in that game, and that's where I'm like, I'd like to see him do that against a defense that had their stuff together and wasn't giving it and make it, hey, you're going to have to consistently beat us by working the ball down the field in tight situations. But hey, kudos to him. I'm just with you. I think Trevor Lawrence right now is still the guy that I think will end up on a higher trajectory. That's only if, though, the Jacksonville Jaguars don't mess him up.
Yeah, it's a big question. And it's something that we'll keep our eye on. But Jacksonville, hey, man, they seem pretty good. I like where they're trending. They're trending upwards. Don't tell Tony Wiggins I said that. Speaking of trending upwards, there are 7 teams that are doing the exact opposite after 0-2 starts. Which one of them could trend upwards after starting 0-2 and make a postseason run? We're going to dive into that next. But first, I got to tell you about LinkedIn Jobs, because LinkedIn Jobs is the place to go if you're a small business and you're looking to hire the right people. You're trying to find people efficiently, the people that you're looking for to do the job and do it at a high level. Well, you can create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. You can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview with tools, screening questions, make it easier to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience that you're looking for. Small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn. 40 million. That's almost as many yards as 2 or 3 or 4.
That's a lot of people
on Sunday. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. All right, Chris, let's keep things rolling here. 0-2 teams with the best shot at making the playoffs. The team I cover, 0-2, the Cincinnati Bengals, but they aren't the only ones. The Titans, the number one seed from a year ago, 0-2, and it was ugly. I mean, it was the other night against the Bills. The Bills make a lot of teams look silly right now, the way they're playing. The Raiders, 0-2 as well. I think that would be a surprise. A lot of 1-1 teams. I mean, all of the NFC West and NFC North, 1-1, which is just kind of wild. Panthers, Falcons, also 0-2, and I feel like I'm missing one more because there's 7 total.
You said you said Bengals, you said Titans, you said Raiders, you said Panthers,
Colts.
You said Falcons. Colts are 0-1. Remember,
I didn't say Colts.
The Texans.
Yeah, that's right. I said Falcons, Panthers.
That's 2.
Okay.
So Falcons, Panthers, Titans, Raiders, and I'm only counting. Was that 4?
Bengals,
Titans. Bengals, Titans. Okay, look at us. We're skipping over the 2 big ones.
Right, so 6.
So 6 total. But those are still. 6. But of those 6, okay, let's point out this too. All 3 of the teams in the AFC made the playoffs last year. That's first of all crazy. You have the number 1 seed in the Titans, the AFC champion in the Bengals, and the Raiders, who pulled themselves out of what was a crazy year last year, and they were supposed to be a team that starts strong. So you have that. The NFC, I think, more predictable. The Panthers, the Fighting Matt Rules, just ain't getting it done. They're just not the team that he was hoping that they would be. Baker Mayfield's looking like, well, Baker Mayfield. And the Atlanta Falcons, I mean, a lot of people pegged that team to just not be good this year. They've been more competitive, but they have not been very good. But I will say, it's tough because I can make an argument for 2 teams in the AFC to be the team that has the best chance here. I'll say this. I think the Bengals are the best team that's 0-2 right now. I think they have the best potential. However, if I was to pick one team to make the playoffs from this group, I'd have to pick the Titans. And why? It's because they're in the AFC South. This is a division with the 0-1 Texans, the 0-1 Titans, and the only win in the division right now are the Jaguars, who beat the 0-1 Colts. The Titans are 0-2. But the Jaguars, their only win is by beating the tar out of the Colts just this past weekend. If I'm the Titans, you're a game back from the leader right now. You play them twice still. Yes, you got embarrassed by the Bills. You're embarrassed that you lost to the Giants in the first place, but you can turn that around. I think that you could turn that around and I think this could be a division where you see a team with 8 or 9 wins make the playoffs. I'm not so sure that happens in the AFC North. The Ravens got to get healthier. I think that they're going to set a tough pace eventually. But for the Bengals, they're going to have to, I think everyone has a target on them right now. And this is what I was concerned about them this season. How do they play with that? How do they deal with that? And starting out 0-2 with 2 teams they were heavily favored against, that's where I'm like, I don't know if they'll make the playoffs, but I do think they are the most talented team of the 0-2 bunch.
Yeah. And that's the thing here is what do you, and I like it because the circumstances do matter. Right. And the Titans, like if the Bengals are in the AFC South, I'd be like,
they're walking. They're easily climbing up out of the AFC.
If the Raiders are in the AFC South, I'm like, okay, well, it's that division's over too, And so I see where you're coming from. I also just kind of think the Titans are bad.
See, I can't get a fix on them because they shouldn't be bad, right? Like they got Derrick Henry. You got yes, they lost AJ Brown, and we're seeing him dominate in Philadelphia, and maybe he's more important than I gave him credit for. But I feel like that team, they should be competitive. I'm not saying they shouldn't be the 1 seed again, but they should be a competitive team that leads the AFC South, and they've looked terrible in these first 2 games.
Outside of Derrick Henry, who scares you? Like Ryan Tannehill isn't scary. Like
offensively,
if you're the Steelers, let's use the team you cover.
Okay.
If it's Mitch Trubisky versus Ryan Tannehill, does Tannehill have an edge? Okay, fine. Is it a huge edge that you're like, oh man, no?
Yeah.
And so they have the edge where, Derrick Henry, he's scary.
Yeah.
Outside of that, man, they got a really good D-line.
Their pass rush can take over a game, which is what I like. Bud Dupree, Rashad Weaver, crazy. Also, how they just going to take all of Pittsburgh's people? They got Bud Dupree, they got Ola Adini, they went and got Derek Tuska, and Rashad Weaver went to Pitt. Like, you're just going to take all the Pittsburgh people and just say we're going to rush the quarterback. That's not how it works. But in all seriousness, they still got Kevin Byard back there, right? So like, they got guys I like on this roster. And that's why I thought that they would be better than this. Like, I thought they could beat the Giants, and I didn't think they would beat the Bills. I thought the Bills would smack them a little bit. But, I mean, they looked pathetic on Monday Night Football.
Yeah. And Jeffrey Simmons is, the leader
Jeffrey Simmons,
of the line room.
It's another one, yeah.
Look, I think Robert Woods could give Ryan Tannehill a reliable target, especially as he continues to get farther removed from the ACL. So we'll see there. But I'm going to put them third on this list of 0-2 teams. And it's a tie to me, because I think that the Raiders and the Bengals are both in a really tough division. Mm-hmm. But I think they have really good quarterbacks with great weapons.
Yeah.
And so I can't count either team out, even though the Bengals right now, their offense looks, I don't
confusing.
know what the heck is going on,
I
honestly.
don't know either.
And in the Raiders, well, they had no business. I mean, Kyler Murray ran. Did you see?
Yeah, I watched that whole. That was ridiculous. It was stupid. I don't know how you let that happen.
Could someone tackle him? And then you just let him. Oh man!
And then you had the 2-point conversion where you get a delay of game while working on the 2-point conversion, and then they still get it after all that craziness. I mean, that was also, I think, an anomaly of a game. You're also not going to have a game where Hunter Renfrow gets fumbles a ball in overtime and it's scooped and scored by Byron Murphy. Like, that's not going to happen all the time. But here's my thing with the Raiders. You're in the AFC West. Yes, one of their losses has been to the Chargers, and the Chargers are one of the problems there. But you cannot fall behind when the Chargers and the Chiefs are there. I'm not so worried about the Broncos yet, because they haven't looked great. They haven't looked good even. But
they haven't.
But like in a division where, if you're behind the Chiefs, by 2 games now, and you still got to play them twice, and you're not playing well, that doesn't bode well for you winning division. And now you still got 5 more games against your own division, and you might end up fighting for a wild card spot in a conference where you have 3 teams in the AFC North that I expect to be in that hunt. At least 2 teams, maybe 3 teams from the AFC East to be in the hunt. I think we could throw the AFC South out, and you're going to have another team in the AFC West with you fighting for it. Every game counts in this conference. Yeah,
no doubt. I mean, and so that's why it's a tie, because it's tough. But I think both of those teams got better this offseason. I think both of those teams should be competitive and be in the postseason. It's hard, but are we sure the Raiders aren't better than the Broncos? Like, I kind of think so at this stage. Like,
I think they should be.
What if Derek Carr is just better than Russell Wilson?
No, I think that could be, yeah.
And so that's the thing, is it's like, can Burrow and this offensive line figure it out? We'll see. I spend all day talking about it every day, so we're not going to do it right now. But like, at some point, it should click again.
It needs
at some point. And so I'll put those 2 teams first. But the Titans, from a circumstantial standpoint, could they play sound enough and have a defensive line that disrupts enough and have a Derrick Henry and a reliable target in Robert Woods? Could I see the path where they ugly it up to 9-7 and win that division? Sure. Absolutely. Even though I don't love it right now. And it's really hard to love any of the 0-2 teams, because it's been pretty ugly if you're 0-2, because there aren't many of them. Normally there's about 10 0-2 teams right now.
Yeah.
And so the fact that it's much less, and there's a lot of 1-1 teams, it's early and we're still figuring it out. Up next, chaos in the Week 3 power rankings. We'll dive into those right here on Locked On NFL.
But first, we got to talk to you guys about BetOnline. You got BetOnline.net, your number 1 source for all your betting stats and sports information. You can find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, news, including all of the NFL action. We're in Week 3 now, y'all, so you want to get on all the NFL action. Big matchups coming up, starting with Steelers-Browns on Thursday Night Football. All of that, also Major League Baseball making the playoff push right now. BetOnline is your continued source for all your betting stats and sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. And get ready, because NBA and NHL ain't far behind. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action when you visit BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, Chris, let's dive on in to the week 3 power rankings. And as always, we'll break them down for the podcast listeners here. And if you're watching on YouTube, and you should subscribe on YouTube, because why wouldn't you? You can see the rankings right now. The Bills, no surprise, number 1, followed by the Chiefs, Bucks, Eagles moving up to number 4. Chargers fall a spot to number 5. And rounding out the top 10, Rams, Packers, Dolphins, they move up. Ravens fall from 5 to 9, and the 49ers move up to 10 with Jimmy G at QB.
Yeah, that's wild.
Chris, your thoughts on the top 10?
Okay, so I mean, like, I think the Bills, is there a ranking higher than one that we can give the Bills because they deserve it with the way? I mean, they have just looked unstoppable. They dismantled the Rams so badly, and then like the Rams played, they beat the Falcons. They did what they were supposed to do, but they showed again. Like Jalen Ramsey looked like himself again this week. He didn't look like himself trying to cover Stephon Diggs, and that's what scares me so much about the Bills. It's just like they're warming up right now. But I will say this: hot teams early don't always stay hot the entire year. We'll see how that plays out. Chiefs, I get it. Eagles moving up to 4, I respect, because they have looked very good. They handled a Lions team that actually I wasn't giving much credit to, but the way the Lions played this week, I respect the Eagles even more for getting that win, and the way they just manhandled the Vikings. Also, I will say that I feel bad for Vikings fans that went to Philly. I lived out in that area for 4 years. There are a few things less embarrassed or less tough to deal with, or more tough to deal with, than dealing with Eagles fans, because the Eagles fans can be relentless. They will give you no quarrel, no peace. You will just know pain and misery if they're beating you in your house. So that was rough. Chargers, okay, yeah, I still put them up there. Dolphins to 8. That's one that I want to see how they play out. But I agree with most of these rankings here. Ravens still top 10. They're hurt up. I'll give them a break there. Dolphins at 8. I want to see a little bit more from them. Also, the Packers, they handle their business, James. But man, you're like, hey, you beat up on the Bears. Good job, but you got to answer for what you did in week 1, because you look pathetic against the Vikings.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the Bears.
It's the
Bears. And part of it is there's a lot of 1-and-1s. So do you move teams up? Do you move teams down? And speaking of 1-on-1, 1-and-1, our 11th ranked team, the Saints, they don't move despite that collapse in the fourth quarter against the Buccaneers. I dropped them down. Of course I did. Tony Wiggins probably put them number 1 still.
Oh, that's what he did.
11. That's what he did. Yeah, that's right. Him and Ross Jackson, Anyways, Arizona making a big move up to number 12. The Bengals fall to 13. Broncos fall a spot despite the win to 14. The Minnesota Vikings 15th. The New England Patriots moving up to 16th after a win over your Steelers, followed by the Lions at 17, Raiders 18, Steelers fall to 19, and Giants 20, the Browns 21. Just to get into that 20 there. Not a ton surprises me here. I do think that the Saints are too high. I was also surprised that the Cardinals jumped as high as they did. They were 21st last week. Either we were just way too low on them last week, or they're way too high right now.
I mean, I think it's the latter right now. They had a great, fun, exciting comeback, but that was not a good performance overall. That was you pulled your butt out the fire in the last second there. You got to put together a competitive game. I don't see anything dependable with the Cardinals right now, but of course they don't have D-Hop, and maybe it's more of a however you steal wins at this part of the season until he comes back. It's just bonus points to make sure that you got to be ready when he comes back around. I also think the Broncos are too high. I mean, we were just talking about the AFC West. I don't see it with Russell Wilson just yet there. And maybe it's not Russell Wilson himself, but maybe it's Nathaniel Hackett, where did you see the fans were counting down the play clock to like that? I've never seen that kind of disrespect for a head coach. And I'm just like, my goodness, this is a bad situation. I'm sorry. The Broncos deserve to be down a lot lower. I'm also like, I get that the Raiders could be better, but they're 0-2. They're the team that lost to the unstable Cardinals. I think they need to be down a lot lower. Vikings, they had a tough go with the Eagles. I'll give them a break because the Eagles, I think, are legitimately that good. The Patriots, well, they just beat the eventual Super Bowl champion Pittsburgh Steelers, so they should be number one. I just was wondering what the audible reaction would be from James when I said that.
Oh my God!
But no, I think the Patriots are fine where they're at. My only gripes here: Cardinals too high. I do agree. Saints too high. Raiders too high. I might bump the Steelers up a slot, but that's a defense that when they get TJ Watt back, I think they'll be back to playing more winning football, but they're gonna need some crazy things to happen. They had the muffed punt this week, I think was a big thing that crushed him outside of Mitch Trubisky just existing. But in all seriousness, I think that's the biggest change there. The Giants, though, at 2-0, are we disrespecting the New York Football Giants by having below 0-2 teams? That's crazy.
Is it crazy?
It's not because they're so bad.
I don't know. I'm not buying the Giants yet. I'm not buying. You notice when we talked about young quarterbacks, we didn't mention. Oh yeah, Daniel Jones.
We didn't say nothing about Daniel Jones.
He didn't even come on my radar, and I get fourth year in the league. Maybe it's a little different, but wasn't even on the radar. All right, rounding out. Speaking of a quarterback that's better than Daniel Jones, Carson Wentz and the Washington Commanders, 22nd. Was that a shot? I think it was. Another quarterback that might be better than Daniel Jones, at least if you ask the Bengals.
Oh, no.
Cooper Rush and the Cowboys.
Oh, he said Cooper Rush. I knew he was going there. Oh.
23rd, followed by the Jaguars at 24, the Jets at 25, moving on up. The Titans dropping like a rock to 26th, the Colts 27th, followed by the Seahawks. Yeah. Hey, they might have wrote me off. You didn't write back. He wrote back this week, and it was not good for Geno Smith and the Seahawks. The Bears 29th, the Texans 30th, even though anyway, they're sneaky. The 31st Carolina Panthers, who also were close to winning both of their games, but are 0-2, and the Atlanta Falcons are 32nd. Did we mention the Panthers on the 0-2 teams? We might not have, but yeah, they're one of the teams too.
Yeah, they're one of we did say because them and the Falcons are. Honestly, I might list the Falcons above the Colts at this point, even though the Colts are 0-1-1. I mean, the Falcons at least were in both of their games, and they were against divisional opponents, and divisional games are tough. But I mean, the Colts, they weren't even in this week. You tied the Texans, who everyone should be bulldozing this year. I don't care who you are, you need to bulldoze the Texans this year. This is not their year to compete. And you tied them, and then you lost embarrassingly to the Jaguars. And it's not like the Jaguars are the Eagles right now. Like I give the Vikings a break a little bit because it's like, hey, I think the Eagles are legitimately good this year. But the Jaguars aren't that good. You should not be getting destroyed by them. So the Colts, I would put lower. I'd give the Bears a little slight bump over the Seahawks, the Colts, the Titans. I'll pause at the Jets. I think that Joe Flacco having a one old good old time for the old timer. I think that's a little different there. The Cowboys, I'll give the Cowboys some credit. Micah Parsons in that defense is better than I thought that they would be as a whole. I thought it would just be a one-man show there, but they're doing enough. But yeah, so all by and large, just switch up the bottom teams a little bit for me. But I think all the teams, they've earned their way to this part of the list.
Wait a second here.
What's up?
Did you just take a shot at Mr. Elite Joe Flacco? Did you just say
Mr. Elite?
One last old run. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Chris Carter. Mr. Right. Chris Carter.
Mr. Chris Carter.
I know. I didn't mean to say miss.
You're
I just stopped in the middle of Mr. To be fair. To be very fair. I did not mean to.
You're fine.
Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah.
Joe Flacco.
Okay.
You're picking one. Who you picking?
You mean like right now or all time?
Oh, well, right now. I'm talking.
I was going to say, is this a joke? Okay. I mean, right now, Joe Flacco, he's seeing the field.
I agree. I agree. By the way, I heard it on another podcast, and I was like, you mentioned Flacco, and I'm like, I agree. Flacco with those weapons in Pittsburgh, Flacco.
But see, here's the thing: is that if you were to swap teams, now here's the thing: if I were to pick the Steelers Jets right now, I'd still pick the Steelers because I think they're a better team overall. But,
sure, me too.
Right, but here's the thing: is that if you put Joe Flacco with the weapons and the Steelers, I think he would have more plays. I'm telling you, James, and I don't want to make this Locked On Steelers because we're going to do this in a little bit too, but I'm watching the All-22, and people in Pittsburgh, they're coming for the offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, and saying, oh, he's calling up terrible plays, and nobody's open. And I'm like watching the All-22, and man, Deontay Johnson's open, Chase Claypool's open, George Pickens is wide open. George Pickens is like open all game. He is 24/7 open every day of the week, and he's got like 2 catches this season. It's ridiculous. And it's just Mitch Trubisky, whether he has tunnel vision, whether he's in his own head, I don't know what's going on there. He is making it very hard for the Steelers to say, hey, we want to let Kenny Pickett develop and let him kind of like ease his way into the NFL, because the fans in Pittsburgh are chanting Kenny's name. Granted, he's the superstar from University of Pittsburgh last year that set the ACC touchdown passing record. But in all seriousness, Mitch Trubisky, he ain't it right now. He could turn it around. I think Mitch can be a good veteran. I saw really good things in him in training camp, but in these games, he has just made poor decision after poor decision. And Joe Flacco, I mean, he had a heck of a day this past weekend. What did he throw? I was looking at his numbers. He threw 307 yards and 4 touchdowns. Granted, against the Browns defense, which I don't hold in too high regard at this point. But still, I'm not so sure Mitch Trubisky will do that this weekend to that same Browns defense.
He won't.
Yeah. There you go.
I'll just let you know right now, he won't. But I'm glad you were. I thought you might say Mitch, and I thought it was going to trigger a debate.
Come on,
instead,
now, just because I picked the Steelers to beat the Bengals and I was right, it doesn't mean that I think the Steelers are the best at everything.
Which is honestly the most ridiculous outcome. It's so insane. And I don't even think it's me being biased. Like, I don't know what the heck was going on in that wild game. But one team's 0-2. One team has Mitch Trubisky and is 1-1. So I can't say anything.
How in the world did that happen in Pittsburgh? We don't know.
And that's a good way to end this show. He's Christopher Carter. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Carter Critiques. Check him out every single day on Locked On Steelers. I'm James Rapien. Check us out on Locked On Bengals if you want more. And Tony and I will be back together next Wednesday. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Follow wherever you get your podcast. Chris, this was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. Always good, James.
Until next time, thank you so much for listening and watching to a Wednesday edition of Locked On NFL.